Welcome to the Twist Out Cancer podcast, which delves into the emotional journeys of those touched by cancer, offering a platform for survivors, caregivers, previvors, and loved ones to share their experiences. Through intimate conversations, this podcast explores the power of creativity and connection in navigating the challenges of cancer. Guests will discuss the transformative impact of Twist Out Cancer's unique programs and highlight the resilience of the human spirit. We're so happy you're here. Let's get into it.
Welcome to Power Partners podcast from Twist Out Cancer, where we shine a light on people and organizations using creativity, compassion, and connection to make a difference. I'm Soraya Fata, advisory board member for Twist Out Cancer, and today I'm joined by Megan Scherer, who is the co-founder of Worth the Wait charity. We'll explore what brought them to Twist Out Cancer, how their work is impacting the community, and what exciting projects they have on the horizon. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so happy to see you again after so many years. We first met in 2023, I think. I was going back through my emails at a Tiger Lily Foundation event, and I recall that you reached out to me after I shared my own fertility story and told me all about your great organization.
Yes, it's a great history, and I love how the world of nonprofits in the cancer space just keep us all connected, and I met so many amazing people, including you.
Yeah, so it was so great to see you again pop up and be paired with you for this Power Partners podcast. For our listeners who don't know about your organization, can you just share a little bit about the organization you co-founded?
Absolutely. So my husband Mike and I co-founded Worth the Wait in 2021 after our own experience with his cancer diagnosis, treatment, and then cancer-related infertility and our journey to build a family. And we've been doing this now for 5 years, and we're so excited to offer patient financial assistance for fertility preservation and family building. We do a lot of education, some advocacy work, and generally raising awareness about the field of oncofertility.
And congrats on celebrating your 5-year anniversary. Will you tell me how many lives you've touched now with your charity?
Yes, we have been able to make an impact by awarding 257 grants to adolescent and young adult cancer patients and survivors in 41 different states now. And then, thousands of people educated and touched with our awareness and education programs as well.
That's incredible, Megan. I was doing some of my homework and came across a lot of testimonials of folks that you've helped out. And I was tearing up with some of the stories and how much of an impact you all have made on others' lives. And that must feel incredible to you after having your own fertility challenges.
Yeah, it's the most rewarding thing for me is, getting a text message with a baby picture from one of our grant recipients. And, for every one of those, I know there are so many more people that just have hope for the future and what their survivorship can be because, they've been able to preserve fertility.
Yeah.
So Mike and I really started reflecting in 2020, during the pandemic and the time we were spending at home. By that time, our son was 3 and we had tried to go through IVF and we were not successful, growing our family. And so we were really just reflecting on how lucky we felt and how we wanted to make sure that our son understood, how grateful and lucky we were to be able to have a family. And so we thought, well, this has really been a pain point in our life. What could we do to, make the world a better place when, everything was so challenging, back in 2020? And so we were going to just set some money aside and try to help maybe 1 or 2 families a year. And Mike has a friend that's an attorney, and they were talking about it at happy hour one night. And he said, this is a 501c3, let me set this up for you.
That's awesome. I love it. And from there, yeah, you've just grown and grown, and so many people have donated so that you can touch so many people's lives. Let's talk a little bit about the financial burden of fertility. I think a lot of people are unaware of just how expensive these procedures can be. I myself, as you know, am a cancer survivor, and I have gone through my own IUI, IVF. We've gone through surrogacy. We've had like a 10, 11-year journey now for fertility. And I think I could have bought like a summer home had I not invested in trying to grow my family. At one point, I was joking and telling my fertility doctor that my paychecks should just go direct deposit to his account because I was paying literally all of my income. But I mean, so many people struggle with the financial burden of this. And so many families, I think, don't even get to try. I feel fortunate that I even had the resources to try to build my family.
Yeah, I think it's, a really complex issue with financial toxicity because, on the front end, when you're diagnosed with cancer and I'm going to have to take time off of work for surgery to recover, for chemotherapy, whatever the treatment plan is, then before you can even get to that, oh, by the way, it's going to be $10,000 to freeze your eggs, or maybe $15,000 if you want to preserve embryos. There's that financial burden. And then, like you've experienced in survivorship, okay, now I'm in a place where I'm ready to start a family. Oh, I need $150,000 to work with a gestational carrier. And, we have seen stories from across the board about how people are trying to finance this. And so while, our grants average about 2,500, even people who are, looking at trying to gather $150,000 for surrogacy, they're still so overwhelmed and relieved, and the joy that they have just knowing that someone is there who understands, and, this community that truly gets it just lifts so much of a burden.
Yeah, I think you bring up a few good points there. One being that, when you're dealing with a diagnosis of cancer, the overwhelm is so incredible with just dealing with the diagnosis that to add on fertility challenges, like this intersectionality of these two issues, they're hard enough on their own, right? But I was always I always felt like there was no way to talk about my cancer diagnosis without talking about infertility because they were so intertwined. And I think that's like double the overwhelm when you're trying to handle both. And then there are circumstances too where there's not a lot of time to preserve your fertility, or you're not counseled to preserve your fertility. And then years later, the impacts of having had cancer become a parent. And I did see that part of your mission is to educate people around preserving their fertility. I'd love if you could talk a little bit about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have some literature we've developed and that we are able to distribute across the country. But a lot of that work in our educational program is about partnering with hospitals and at providing education to support groups for patients or groups of nurse navigators, because, if your care team is not informed and they don't understand what it takes to be able to delay treatment in order to, go through with fertility preservation, then there's no chance of it happening. So it's really a complex issue because, yes, we're raising awareness with the general public, but how many of them, will be diagnosed with young adult cancer and face, infertility because of it? Really letting the healthcare providers know and understand, how does it work within their system? Some community groups that I talk to don't even know what AYA cancer means, adolescent and young adults. So there's a big learning curve, but it's been really exciting to, go to different conferences and serve as an advocate and just have these conversations either with groups or one-on-one with providers.
How have you been building those partnerships, and then what kind of advocacy do you do with them? I saw that you had like infertility speakers. Are they integral to this process?
Yes, yes. So this summer we launched an Oncofertility Speakers Bureau. So we have 7 members so far, and we'll probably recruit up to 15. And they all live in major metro markets in the US. And so we're empowering them to share their stories. We did something similar last year. We recruited some patients and they spoke on a panel at the Oncofertility Consortium, which is a wonderful conference with all the leaders in oncofertility from the entire world come. And we just saw the power that those patient stories had, and thrilled to, be able to see how we can grow this, mission of raising awareness.
It's great. And I also saw that Tiger Lily Foundation, I think it was them, had helped with these questions that people should be asking themselves, asking their oncologist, asking their doctor. And I sifted through them, and wow, I thought, wow, that would have been really helpful, like at the time that I was going through my treatment to see and to think about, because there's so many, questions that you really do need to ask yourself that you're not thinking about in the moment because you're just so overwhelmed with the diagnosis.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a different process for fertility preservation between males and females. And because my husband is a survivor, we really want to make sure that men and women are seen as equal and they have those opportunities and those conversations. Certainly for men, it's much less expensive. You don't necessarily have to delay treatment as much. So this year, we've done a little bit more focus on male infertility as well, and like how to be a supportive partner during IVF, and what the mental load and mental health for men going through infertility treatments, as a result of cancer can be. And that's been really powerful because, rightfully so much of the focus has been on women, but we want to make sure that men are part of that conversation as well.
Yeah, that's great. And is your husband a speaker when it comes to those conversations? I'm not sure what his role is in the organization. Do you want to share a little bit about his work?
Yeah, absolutely. So he owns a business, but has been able to go down 4 days a week with that business. And so he works for Worth the Wait one day, which is not a lot, but he comes to a lot of conferences and, serves as a patient advocate. So ASCO is, the world's largest oncology conference. And Mike and I were so lucky to sit in the audience when Jenna gave her ASCO Voices speech this year. It was so amazing. And again, the power of storytelling that she's been able to do. So Mike's been on a lot of different panels, and we're doing some advocacy work in the state of Ohio, which is where we live, and trying to get, fertility coverage being mandated for people with cancer, and making sure that, again, just financial toxicity is not such a big role. So he's been, sharing his story now for 5 years and is really comfortable doing so, and has inspired some other men to, kind of step up to the plate and share their stories too.
I love that. And I love that you're doing the advocacy on the local level. Illinois actually does cover fertility for cancer survivors, which is where I live. I live in Chicago. Unfortunately, mine wasn't covered because I work for the federal government. So there was like a loophole there, which is why I had that financial burden. But for many people in the state of Illinois, they do get coverage. So I hope our state can be a model for Ohio, and that you're able to get coverage in your state.
Yeah, yeah, Illinois, I mean, gosh, that Illinois and California, they probably have the strongest laws. But you're right, there's loopholes. We've helped a lot of patients on the family building side because maybe the coverage is not as strong there. And also some of those, government employees, people who work at Catholic institutions. We've had some nurses at Catholic hospitals and that they fall outside of that. So, it's not going to be perfect, but we just feel like we need to establish something in Ohio that we can grow and make fertility preservation more accessible.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I'm glad to hear that you're behind that effort. How did you meet Twist Out Cancer? Was it at ASCO, or had you previously been in touch with Jenna, our founder, or others at Twist Out Cancer?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of ASCO, and then, there's a lot of great AYA groups that meet different, collections of nonprofits. And, it's such a small world. Once you meet a few people, everybody knows one another. And I've been really inspired, by the work of Twist Out Cancer. And we're going to be collaborating on a workshop next summer.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah, so I think it's still in development phases, but there will be some prompts with I think is it called the Twist Shop?
Twist
Is that
shops.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it'll be a twist shop. And we were talking about, maybe a theme around Mother Nature and something, vaguely related to fertility. So I'm really excited to see, what kind of crowd we can bring in, because just processing the emotions and having an outlet to be able to do that is so valuable. And then just the community that you all have as well.
Yeah, I love that idea of using Mother Nature as kind of a prompt to art therapy. Yeah, Jackie and a couple others lead our Twist shops at Twist, and they're magical. I mean, I don't know if you've ever attended any, but you can actually attend them online and experience it for yourself before collaborating and understand just like how sometimes you walk into there and you don't even know you need the healing. And then you go through the process of it, and so many things come to the surface. And it is really an amazing form of, trying to move forward and heal and process, having had a diagnosis.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I have one on my calendar because Jackie said you got to go and just kind of experience it for yourself. But she showed me, some of the different art that, is a product of the workshops. And I'm really excited to take part.
What else do you have planned with your organization? What other collaborations or fundraisers, or what do you have in the works that you can share with our audience members?
Yeah, the other new thing that we're doing, we have our first cohort that's about halfway done with the program now, is something called the Fertility Huddle. And it is a hybrid support group and just education program. We're still kind of working through like, how exactly do we describe this? But I'll tell you what it is. It's a group of 10 people who are survivors who are starting their family building journey. And it's led by a psychologist, and she specializes in third-party reproduction. So third-party reproduction is like using assisted reproduction technology, potentially surrogacy, donor eggs. And so she's leading them through and educating them about the process, how to handle the grief associated with maybe the family that you are intending to build isn't exactly what you had dreamed of, your entire life. And the feedback that we've gotten from this group so far is like life-changing. I mean, they're sharing that with us. So we have funding for the first full year of it, and we'll be recruiting another cohort very shortly. So yeah, if there's anyone listening who, is just at the beginning of their family building or perhaps in the middle of it and just feeling, defeated, this would be a really great, free program for them to participate in.
And what parameters do you have for participation? Do they have to be located in a certain area, or is it online? Do they have to be a certain age group? I know that you typically work with adolescents and young adults. Like, what parameters are there for this?
Yeah, so it's all virtual. It's held at a specific day and time, so you just have to be available at that time. And it's ages 21 and up with a history of cancer. So most participants have been 20 to 30-ish, I would say, but we have some applicants for the next cohort that are males. The first cohort ended up all being females, but we'd like to, have a really wide group of people come together and, find community and support and education.
I think that's great. I know my husband felt like pretty isolated. I had some support groups, and people were constantly talking to me about their IVF journeys and things like that. But as the, I guess, supporting partner, it was kind of isolating for him. He didn't really know a lot of other guys that were going through the process. So I think that's great, whether they are the main that has the diagnosis and is the one that has like the fertility challenges, or they're the supporting like partner. I think, the less isolation that people feel as they're going through their family building process related to like survivorship, the better off we'll all be, because it is really an isolating, lonely experience, right?
It is. It is. And, Mike and I reflect back and think like, a lot has changed in the last, 5 to 10 years, with IVF clinics. Like ours offered no support. And so many of them now are doing that, regardless of the reason why you have infertility. But this is really just a program we're excited about. And so many people came to us and said, like, I don't know where to start with surrogacy. I have no idea. And I don't understand, how I can process these feelings. So we thought, well, if we're getting enough interest with people asking us, like, let's try out a new program and see how it goes.
Well, you have to share with me how it goes in the, upcoming year with this next cohort. I'd love to be updated on that. Is there anything else our listeners should know? I did see on your website like a upcoming fundraiser. Maybe you want to mention that.
Yeah, we have a fun, very unique fundraiser in September. And we live in Ohio, and we have a friend that he's a Jeep Wrangler enthusiast. So he has an obstacle course in his backyard and a big party barn. And so we'll have about 300 plus people attend that. We always have one of our Worth the Wait grant recipients come and share their story. So it's a really, really fun and just a different type of fundraiser.
That sounds fun and almost like it's worth the drive from Chicago to attend. I love it. So if folks can't attend your fundraiser, how can they donate to your organization or get in touch with you?
Yeah. So if you're interested in, applying for assistance, if you're able to support us, we would love for you to visit our website. It's worththewaitcharity.com. And we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Worth the Wait Charity as well. Send us a message on there. We'd love to, connect. And no matter what stage you are, in this oncofertility journey, we'd love to just be a listening ear and maybe provide some advice.
Megan, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today and sharing your journey and your organization, and for being a power partner. So to our listeners, thanks for tuning in to the Twist Out Cancer podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks so much for having me.